Hello everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks for checking out Emergency Operations Center, the board game, disaster scenario, Wildfire Mayhem. Today we're going to be doing a gameplay overview. I'm going to be showing you how the game works and plays and some of the mechanics. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and jump right on in. So let's start with an overview of the map. The map is of the Colorado Springs area, so it starts with the western side of town, extending from Manitou Springs all the way through the heart of Colorado Springs to the eastern edge of town through Peterson Space Force Base. So the map is designed for easy and quick setup. Each of the player tokens have matching icons on the map for where your units will be placed at the start of the game. So you're probably wondering what these red hexagons are on the map. So the game isn't just focused on the disaster. These red hexagons represent the everyday emergencies that happen because disasters don't happen on a good day or when nothing else is going on. So as you can see here, each of these red hexagons you'll place a crisis token on at the start of the game, and you'll also have to manage these crises happening at the same time as the wildfire disaster, the main emergency on the game. And speaking of wildfire, let's go ahead and take a look at how the wildfire works in this game. As you can see here, the wildfire is set up in a cone shape, just like real wildfire does. It starts as a cone and spreads out as it grows. So with this game, you have a lot of flexibility and customization. So we recommend starting the wildfire on any one of these three gray hexagons here on the map. You can see here the number 15 hexagon that's gray is next to Waldo Canyon, based off the historic Waldo Canyon fire. But really, you can actually start the wildfire disaster anywhere on the west side of this map, providing you a lot of options, replayability, and customization. It also increases the difficulty of the game depending on where you start the wildfire at. Now the wildfire in this game is dynamic. It's going to move and shift and grow every round. So every round during the emergency management player's turn, the emergency manager is going to roll the dice twice. Once to determine the direction that the fire grows, and the second to determine how many spaces on the map the wildfire is going to expand. Additionally, there are chance cards that can rapidly expand the wildfire and might catch you off guard if you're not careful. Now let's talk about players. There are 7 emergency support functions that players can play as during the board game. This includes ESF 5, Emergency Management, ESF 8, Public Health and Medical, ESF 13, Public Safety, ESF 4, Firefighting, ESF 1, Transportation, ESF 3 and 12, Public Works and Energy, which were combined for this disaster scenario, and ESF 6, Mass Care. Each ESF has various units that have different values for attack and defense and different point values that are representative of units and resources within that emergency support function. Now, additional player packs and expansions are available that can customize and add on to your game. For those that pre-order, they'll get the additional Fire Marshal player pack and the Sheriff's Office player pack that adds on 2 more additional players, one additional ESF 13 player and another additional ESF 4 player to the game. Let's take a look here at ESF 4 Firefighting. So ESF 4 Firefighting out the box includes 3 different unit types: the fire engine, the heavy rescue unit, and the wildland fire crew. So if you look at the values, so the far left value in the star is the attack value, the base attack value, and what this is the base strength of the unit. So every unit has a base strength that is added to a single dice roll, giving you a total strength value for each unit. The goal is to overcome the crisis strength value with the base unit attack strength and the dice roll. So next, the shield represents defense, because there's defense mechanic I'll talk more about in a second. And then you have green for movement and mobility, right? So that green value, that 4 or that 5 if you're the fire engine, represents how many spaces you can move on the map. Now let's talk about dice mechanics. The way the dice work in this game is that you always have a red dice and a white dice at a minimum. So whenever you're using one of your units, right, so say you're using this heavy rescue to go after this crisis token here for an 8, right? So when you go to roll, you see that there's a base attack value of 3 for this heavy rescue truck. So you know off the bat you need to roll at least 5 or higher to beat the crisis value for this crisis token of 8, right? This car this SUV that's on fire. So you would have to roll at least oh, Snake Eye. Again, you'd have to roll 5 or higher to beat this crisis token. Now, the dice have some tricks here. One, if you roll a Snake Eye, or basically a 1, it has the same effect as if you rolled a red dice higher than the defense value of 5. So basically, the way chaos works in this game, chaos represents the chance maybe the truck got a flat tire, maybe there was an accident, maybe there was traffic, maybe something happened, and that incident, this crisis token, represents a smaller incident that's being handled as part of this larger disaster, is going to take more time, resources, or support to manage. So if you roll a Snake Eye, this unit is out of action for 1 turn, and so you just flip it over, and you know that unit can't be used until the next turn. Now, the additional trick here is that whenever you roll the white dice to try and beat to use your action, you're also rolling a red dice. And if that red dice right here, the 6, is higher than the defense value of 5, right? It has the effect that, again, it takes you out of action for a turn. Maybe your truck needed to be refueled or restocked. But either way, it's a mechanic that we have in this game that represents the probability of basically something going wrong, right? What are the odds that something goes wrong? Because things go wrong all the time, every day. Now let's talk about chaos cards, how these work. So you have 3 decks in the game, 3 decks of chaos cards. Each are timed with each phase. So phase 1, local disaster. Phase 2, state disaster. Phase 3, national disaster. And these card decks have been perfectly curated to keep the game moving forward and to keep the tension on you and your team. So every phase of the game, every 3 turns, you're going to use the corresponding deck. So so the deck for phase 2 during phase 2, deck for phase 3 during phase 3 of the game. And each of these decks can provide powerful boons or benefits to you and your team, such as additional resources and support, or additional chaos. So you can see here, breaking news: Wildfire blow up. Expand the Wildfire flaming front 3 spaces and add 4 random crisis tokens, 2 spaces east of the flaming front. You can see here in the picture that fire is booming. So again, you want to be mindful that chance cards can accelerate the game. They're meant to keep the pressure on you and your team, and also advance the game, keep it moving forward. So the way chance cards work are you draw chance cards, 1 at the end of every turn, and 2 whenever you solve a crisis token. So your reward is the chance of getting something good or potentially something bad. Now, each deck of chance cards has specific actions or things that happen. So for example, during phase 1, it's going to focus on local emergency management, emergency response challenges. Phase 2 is going to focus on state. You're going to start getting state support at that state disaster phase, right? So you can see state disaster declaration, right? ESF 6 donations. You're getting a little bit of air support, and state disaster recovery. Those are 4 examples of challenge cards, and there's a deck of 144 challenge cards, right, across all 3 phases here that have different actions, right? So you're going to see more state level support here, get more resources, and finally, when you get to that phase 3 national disaster card deck, you're getting that federal support. You're getting defense support of civil authorities, right? Those Black Hawk helicopters, medevac, right? You've got MAF support, extinguish 2 2 spaces with active wildfire, right? Wildfire destroys cultural site, political turmoil rises by 5. That's not good. Presidential major disaster declaration, spot fire breaks out. So you can see that each of these decks are curated for the specific phase of the game that you're in, and it represents the natural transition that you would have during a real life disaster. And each deck is, like I said, perfectly curated to keep the pressure on you and your team, accelerate the game, keep it fun, interesting, and exciting. So what's nice is that with these decks,
they're going to add a lot of variability to the game. There's a lot of different events and actions that can happen, both good and bad. Whether it's political fiascos, loss of units, or other events, these injects to your game, keep it fresh and exciting. Now we're going to talk about the political turmoil system. So political turmoil represents the combination of the public's trust, the leadership, political elected appointed leadership's faith in you and your team's ability to handle and manage the crisis, right? So as you lose resources to the wildfire, or certain events happen in the game via chance cards, the political turmoil will rise. Well, political turmoil starts at 1. If you reach 20, it's game over. So political turmoil is a system of a mechanic that basically tracks your losses in the game. So as you lose resources to the wildfire or crisis tokens that you're not able to resolve in time, the political turmoil will rise by 2 for every crisis, every crisis token, every resource unit that you lose. Again, putting pressure on the team to be more successful. Now, it can also drive the team to take risk. So there's a risk and reward balance here, and this keeps you and your team on your toes, and also keeps you from making, from doing too many reckless actions, right? So it's part of the strategic element or gameplay here, in that you're having to always constantly balance that, because if operations or things go wrong, it's going to backfire and hit you in the political turmoil system, and can ultimately affect whether you win or lose the game. Now let's talk about the round tracker. So basically, this bar right here under the political turmoil system is the round tracker. So the game is broken into phases. You can see we have phase 1, the first 3 rounds is considered a local disaster. Phase 2, rounds 4, 5, and 6, the following 3 rounds, is the state disaster phase. And phase 3, the national disaster, rounds 7 through 9, and any rounds after that. So basically, what this round tracker does is, 1, it tracks your progression, and also these numbers, plus 10, 11, 12, every turn, this represents the amount of resource allocation points the emergency management player has to use to purchase additional units for the team. Now, the way allocation works is that every resource has a p-value, or a point value, here. And you can see here, this little quick reference guide tells you, right, what the different units cost. So for example, a fire engine costs 3 points, a wildland crew costs 4 points, and a heavy rescue unit costs 5 points, right? And so you're, as the emergency manager, players having to work and balance and prioritize, what resources to which player will be accommodated each round, right? And so you're having to, deal with the tension of limited resources, particularly early on in the game, which makes it more challenging. Now, as the game increases in phases, from phase 1 to phase 2, you're going to be getting more resource points. You're going to be getting resources quicker, right? All the way through phase 3. And so just like we would in a real-life disaster, as it escalates, more resources become available over time. But you never have everything instantaneously or all up front. Now, there are some chance cards that will help expedite resources or provide instant mutual aid. But again, it's a luck of the draw there. But otherwise, this ties in with our resource order system. So now, every round, right, and a round is when all players take their turn, and it ends on the emergency management player's turn. Every round, the emergency management player can allocate those resource points, right, to resources. Now, you don't get those resources immediately. In fact, you use this to track track the queue for when those resources will arrive. So it's just like real life. You have to order things, and they don't arrive instantaneous. So, in fact, when you start the game, all resources you order start here for rounds 1 through 3, 3 rounds out. So it's going to take 3 rounds before you get any of the resources you request from those first 3. Now, as the game progresses into that state disaster phase, phase 2, rounds 4, 5, and 6, it's going to speed up the queue for how quickly you get resources. So any resources you request during phase 2 will actually come quicker, right? There'll be 2 rounds out. And then lastly, when you get to that national disaster phase, that phase 3, that late game, resources will come in much quicker. They'll be one round out in the queue. So again, it kind of represents the natural transition from the start of a disaster, that emergent phase, where you're having limited resources and having to deal with big challenges of overwhelming crisis. So, and then later on, you have much more resources that come quicker. So it provides a balance and a play on realistic disaster logistics systems. All right, well, lastly, I want to give you a sneak peek at our development roadmap ahead. So after the launch of Emergency Operations Center Wildfire Mayhem, we have 5 other disaster scenarios in the works, including the Great San Francisco Earthquake, a tornado recovery focused scenario in Kansas, a volcano in Hawaii, hurricane in Florida, and a civil defense scenario, survive the fallout, based on the historic events in Portland, Oregon in 1950. So we have 5 other disaster scenarios in the works, with more to come. We also have additional add-ons and mini-games that'll be applicable to all of our games in the series. Now, if you're looking for additional challenges or wanting to add complexity to your game or training, we have additional expansions, including mini-games and add-ons in the works, such as a shelter management minigame, instant action planning, and EOC/ICS organization add-on, a public information, officer misinformation, disinformation add-on, and a critical infrastructure challenge mode add-on that forces the team to have to deal with the impacts of failures of critical infrastructure across the community based on the disaster scenario. So we have lots of fun additions in the works to really make the game customizable, more replayable, and to provide additional options for trainings, immersion, and engagement with your communities. I want to give one last quick update in regards to the official timeline. So we are looking at an official launch on Kickstarter early November, and having all pre-orders ship early December so they can be received before the Christmas holiday this year.
Well, everyone, well, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate all the amazing support from the emergency management community. So with that, I want to say next time, I'm hoping to hold a live play session playing through the game, so seeing it from start to finish with the team here. And then with that, I want to remind everyone that to pre-order now, so reserve your copy of the game for $1. With it, it gets you the deluxe edition of the board game, which gives you $25 off and basically includes the deluxe Fire and Police expansion pack, which includes the Fire Marshal player pack and the Sheriff's Office player pack for the price of the standard edition, which is $60. So as an additional incentive for the emergency management community, if I receive 1,500 pre-orders in the next 40 days, I'll donate $5,000 to the IEM Scholarship Fund. So be sure to check out the website at our link in this post, and on the website, be sure to pre-order now to reserve your copy of Emergency Operations Center, the board game. So see you next time, and stay tuned. Bye all.